I'm Maggie O'Halloran, one of the educators here at the Florida School of Holistic Living, and today we're going to talk about passionflower. Passionflower is in the Passionfloraceae family, a family of plants that has about 400 different species, and today we're specifically going to be talking about Passiflora incarnata, and this is a variety of passionflower that is native to Central Florida here, all over the southeast. It's a dried up flower after being picked a couple of hours ago, but you can see that lovely purple. We're going to be talking about Passiflora incarnata mostly. If you're thinking about a lot of the actions that I'm going to be covering today, we're really talking about that Passiflora incarnata variety. But Rico Check says that the other variety that we get the passion fruit from, or Passiflora edulis, can also be used as a sedative tea that we're going to talk about. So over on my arbor here, I have Passiflora edulis, and you can see that the leaves are broader. And if you had touch vision on your media device, you would see that the leaves of the edulis are thicker. But they have similar characteristics. They're both vining. The leaves orient on the stem in the same way. And they both have these really lovely tendrils that spiral. And they both have gorgeous flowers. So with the Passiflora incarnata, the flower is, you've got a lovely shot of the flower on the graphic for this gathering today. And the Passiflora edulis has a really similar shape of the flower, but the petals have a different color scheme. They're more creamy, but they still have that lovely purple. And passionflower got its name. I know some of you might be thinking of it as being helpful for romance, but it really got its name because there were folks that described it as being similar to the Passion of the Christ. So there are the 5 petals that have been associated with 5 of Jesus' disciples, and then the crown of thorns demonstrated in the middle. And the 5 disciples a couple of the disciples were left out because they were not always supportive, I guess, in the minds of the people who thought the passion flower deserved that name. So I like to call passion flower or passion vine when I have spiral thinking because of the spiral quality of that flower. Herbalist Juliet Blancaspor talks about passion flower being really helpful for people that have spiral thinking. Passiflora incarnata, or the edulis, can be used, the leaf or the vines. The fruit and the flower are tasty. The flower can be really lovely added to a salad to make a nice pop of color. But when we're talking about the medicinal actions, we're talking about the leaf and the vine. So if you have herbalist friends in your life or people who like to work with plants and for teas and things, sometimes you'll hear them describe this plant as passion vine and just skip the passion flower part altogether. So A little side note is that my sweetie got me a fancy new microphone for Mother's Day and my birthday. So if you would comment below and let us know how the sound quality is going. I know in previous episodes there have been trouble with the sound. So just comment below and let us know you have a thumbs up on the sound quality. That would be greatly appreciated. So Passiflora incarnata, or edulis. We're using the vine and the leaves. The main actions, cooling and drying, but they are nervine, so they support the nervous system. And then they also provides a little bit of pain relief. Herbalist Maud Greaves says that Passionflower has an action or plant constituent called passiflorine that has been compared with morphine. So a lot of the qualities that you would expect from utilizing morphine have been associated with passionflower or passion vine. So that sedative effect, pain relief. I've read of it being used in protocols to bring down high blood pressure, and I think it's because of the sedative action that it helps with that. Asthma protocols for a similar reason, just really calming the body, lowering the heart rate, and specifically the physical manifestation of anxiety. I've found that passionflower can be really specifically used for people that experience anxiety where they have a hard time slowing down all of the thoughts and just need a little bit of support to be able to focus on the next best thing to do. So the morphine action or the sedative action means that you want to be mindful of when you're utilizing it. For some people, having passionflower tea all day, every day is completely fine. Some days I could probably use it all day, every day. And other days, if I have a cup of passionflower tea, then I will expect to go to sleep. Passionflower can be really helpful for sleep blends. That's where I use it most of my life, is when it's time to go to sleep and maybe there's a lot going on in the world and I'm having a hard time slowing down all the thoughts in my mind to be able to help me get to that restful place. So passionflower can be, or passion vine tea, can be accessed for that sedative quality to help you to fall asleep. It's also been found to be an antispasmodic, and I've heard of people using it for things that where the pain is associated with things like muscle spasms. So antispasmodic sedative might help with muscle tension or things like that associated with stress. One of the primary actions of passionflower is that it's an anxiolytic. That's ANXIOLYTIC. An anxiolytic means that it calms anxiety. Now, there are a lot of pharmaceuticals on the market that have similar actions in the body, and so you wouldn't want to take passionflower tea regularly if you're utilizing some of those pharmaceuticals designed for similar actions, because we just don't really know how they're interacting with each other. That would be true for almost any pharmaceutical product designed to support mental health, because passion vine or passionflower also has some MAOI inhibitor qualities as well. So you want to be mindful of utilizing those pharmaceuticals alongside this herb regularly. You wouldn't want to have a cup of tea every night if you're incorporating those pharmaceuticals in your life. But if you're not, or you're trying to support your body to find restful sleep, and you're working with mental health providers and medical field to support you in maybe coming away from those pharmaceuticals. You never want to just stop taking them. That can be really dangerous. So make sure that you're working with people that can support you in that process if you choose to go that route. That being said, I know that Passionflower can be a really helpful aid to just slow down the mind. I've seen it in protocols for ADHD for both adults and children. One company, Herb Farm, has this kids Captain Concentrate that is sweet and pretty easy to incorporate into one's life. And it has Passionflower in it. That's one of the herbs that is a part of the Captain Concentrate blend because of Passionflower's ability to just help slow things down. When there's just so much running through your mind, it's hard to put your finger on the one thing that could be the next thing that you do. Okay, so we covered those contraindications, and I just want to talk about some of the ways that I like to incorporate Passionflower into my life. I grow it. It grows really easily here in Central Florida. The Passionflower incarnata I see on hikes because it is a Florida native. Fritillary butterfly loves the flowers. It's a host plant for several different butterflies. So if you want to have an addition to your butterfly garden, it can be a great one. It's really self-sufficient. It's happy in Florida sandy soil. It will grow easily by cutting. I've never really tried by seed, and from what I understand, it's definitely better if you try by cutting. But be prepared. Once you have it in your life, it will always be in your life, and it might be in your neighbor's life as well. So be mindful of that if you choose to grow it for yourself, because it grows really easily. It loves the Florida sunshine. Even the summers, it's fine. Rainy season, no big deal. All Florida, all the time. You would, and that's true for the edulous as well. If you enjoy the passion fruit that you can occasionally find in specialty markets, then you can grow the passion fruit for yourself. So our friends, Ralph and Michi, planted this passion vine for us here a few years ago for one of their friends, our son, so that he would be able to access the fruit from inside the arbor and enjoy being outside. So the edulous grows just as easily, but make sure it's going to get enough sun, because anytime you want a plant to flower and then fruit, it needs a certain amount of sun. For either one, if you're taking it by cutting, you would find the vine, you would find the spot where the leaf, I'll show you here. The leaf is coming off the stem. Where you can see it's ready to grow some more things. And I would cut it, and then I would make sure it has at least a solid 4 to 5 inches in that cutting. I can make 2 cuttings here. With any cutting, you have, make sure you have no leaf or flower below the water line. So any leaves or these beautiful little buds that are growing here, I'll just snip them. And then I want to try to get at least 2 of these spots that would potentially have roots on them under the water line. And then I usually take off any flowers so that my cutting can really just focus on growing those roots. So that's one cutting. And I can go through and make several cuttings of these. And then once I get a little bit of root action, I can gently place it in that Florida sandy soil and make sure it stays moist so that it can grow. And once it's settled in and once it's growing, you won't have to think about it ever again. In fact, it'll remind you that it's there because it'll pop up in other areas of your life. So I hear there's a question.
Someone asked if it was invasive.
So there is a question about whether it is invasive. And I don't know the designation that it has in Florida in terms of the grade of being invasive, but I do know that if you live in the suburbs and you put it in the ground, it's going to be there forever. And because it's vining, if you let it go, it could cause harm to other plants that grow nearby. But I don't know it to be invasive in the wild. Okay? Any other questions? Good? Okay, so I have other cutting that I want to save and use for tea. So passion vine makes a really nice fresh tea, or I could dry it. If I'm going to dry it, then I'm not going to follow that herb book that might tell me to put it on a blanket under a tree, because in Florida that would just cause it to mold. Here in Florida, especially during the summer, it's really important that you find a place that it doesn't have, that has lower humidity. And typically for us, that's going to be inside our homes. Although Central Florida has had a lot less humidity than I remember for May, so maybe it would be okay outside. Just to be sure, I'd take it inside. I'd hang it in a space where it was out of direct sunlight and had really good airflow. I'd make sure that wherever I'm hanging it, it would have really good airflow between each of the leaves. And I'd let it hang there for at least a couple of days. You'll know already if you start to crinkle the leaves and they crinkle. Or I could make a fresh tea with this. To do that, you can pull out fancy mortar and pestle. I would just put it inside and I'd bang it. Your goal is to access or break open the plant cell walls. Plant cell walls are rectangles and can be kind of hard. And you want to make sure that you're getting access to those plant constituents that you want to for your tea. So I would muddle that. You don't need an actual mortar and pestle. It's nice to have around, but I can also just do this. In my clean jar, my clean hands. Ignore the picking up from my table, but it's good medicine. For fresh plants, you're putting 1 tablespoon per cup of fresh herb in your container. So this is an 8-cup container, so I want at least 8 tablespoons of fresh herb. If it were dried, then I would I'd convert that from tablespoon to teaspoon. So it would be 1 to 3 teaspoons per cup. Is there a question?
Does passion vine with a red passion flower have medicinal value as well?
I only know, so there was a question about red passion flower having medicinal quality as well. And as far as I know, it is just the Passionflower incarnata, and occasionally the edulis as backup for that sedative quality. Okay, great question though. I do see a lot of different varieties as landscape plants. The red one is really beautiful. The pollinators love it. So if you have it around, hope you are enjoying that. So I have my tea ready to go, and then I would just add hot water from my kettle. I'd fill it up. I'd cover it, and I'd let it steep for about 15 minutes. When it's done steeping, then I could strain it with any number of different straining options. The one that gets the most action at my house came in one of these fancy cup and strainer jobbies, but I feel like this, it just sits it so nicely in so many of my containers that I use it every day. It gets a lot more action than the cup. It has really small holes. It's designed for tea. Really what you need in a strainer is having the holes be small enough for your plant material. Even this kitchen strainer would do the job for straining out my Passiflora incarnata today because my plant particles are so big. So this would be fine. There are other strainers like this one that could be used for a lot of different functions in the kitchen, but make a great tea strainer. So after that 15 to 20 minutes, I would just pour out, carefully, making sure I don't get burned, that tea into my pitcher, and then I would drink to my heart's content, as long as that sedative action was not too much for me. Another way that we incorporate Passionflower in our lives, or Passiflora incarnata, is by way of tincture. Tincture is a really similar process as a water extraction, except it takes a little longer. So the term tincture describes two potential ways of getting your tincture. One is that of maceration. So I would take plant material, not usually from my tea. Usually I would use fresh plant material, not plant material that was already used for tea. So I take my plant material, fresh or dried, to make a tincture. Now, to make a tincture in this method, I'm not weighing, I'm not measuring it for exactness, I'm just making a concentrated herbal extract out of this wonderful passion vine that I have growing, that I harvested that was growing here. For making a tincture, it's really different from a tea in the amount of plant material. For tinctures, you're using a lot more plant material. So for fresh plant material, I'm almost completely filling the jar because it already has a lot of water content. I don't have to worry about it expanding too much. The end goal is that all of your plant material is covered with your liquid. The most common liquids used for making a tincture are apple cider vinegar, glycerin, and alcohol. And alcohol is pretty much anything you have on hand. One time I made a passionflower tincture, or passion vine tincture, out of leftover spiced rum, and that's fine. Whatever alcohol you want to use is fine, as long as it has at least 80% alcohol or 40% alcohol. So you're going with 80 proof, like this one is 80 proof, but it is 40% alcohol. So you want at least 40% alcohol. And then you're taking your alcohol and you're filling up your jar. So I would just fill up all the way to within an inch of the top of the jar, not necessarily this rim, but the very top of the jar. I would cover it label it, and I'm letting it macerate, tincture, extract for 4 to 6 weeks. The alcohol is in there helping all of the wonderful plant constituents be extracted into that alcohol. I'm singing to it and dancing with it every day and letting it know how grateful I am for all of the wonderful plant medicine that's going to come from it for 4 to 6 weeks. At the end of that 4 to 6 weeks, I open it up and I strain out that plant material, and I use these kind of strainers really interchangeably. I would use it for tea that only takes 15 to 20 minutes and lasts for 2 or 3 days. I would also use it for an alcohol tincture that takes 4 to 6 weeks to make and then has a shelf life of about 15 to 20 years. So As long as you're getting all that plant material out, it will last a long time. And you're straining out all the plant material using really similar devices to make a tincture. If you're making a glycerite, like the herb farm, because you want it to taste sweet and not like alcohol, because glycerin does taste sweet. So it makes it really helpful for people who are either trying to avoid alcohol or maybe for kids who don't really want a taste of alcohol, or adults that don't like the taste of alcohol. That's true too. The process is the same, except for using alcohol, you would be using that glycerin. And it's not the same glycerin that you find at drugstores or you've used to make balloons with before. It's designed for going into your body. So make sure you have that kind of glycerin. Any questions?
Yes, someone was commenting about losing connection, asking if you're reposting.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us and talking about Passionflower today. Passiflora incarnata, Passiflora edulis. This video will get posted to our YouTube channel, so check us out there. Anyone who pre-registered for the class, a bonus is that you get that YouTube link emailed directly to you because I have your email address. Any questions after this, go ahead and email me directly at maggie@holisticlivingschool.org. We happen to have it right here. I welcome any questions or thoughts. Thank you for joining me in my garden and hearing about one of my friends, Passionflower. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.